things to get started. We all want to know where the restrooms are. They are right there. So if you feel the need, there's water in the lobby. So if you feel like you need a drink, and there's also punch. So help yourself to that. After this is over, for all of you who aren't members yet, shame on you. But Lori Burns will be at the desk out front, and you can fill out a form while you're here. So yeah, that's good news there. There's also a donation box in the lobby, so there again, you have a little extra cash, you didn't know what to do with, yeah, put it in the donation box. For those of you who are on Facebook, if you haven't friended the Historical Society, please do so. We put out stuff pretty regularly about what's going on here and fun things. So and you can go and like it and share it with everybody who's on your friend list. So that's always a good thing. Upcoming events, we have some of these laying in the lobby, but so just so you know what's going on, we're closed on July 4th. Yes, so go party. July 29th, we're doing Ginny Campbell, George Washington 1753 Trail through Western Pennsylvania, and then we go into September. So there again, those are on Facebook. We've got some more of these in the lobby, so pick one up on your way out. Okay, the next thing, more money, sorry. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, PA Ohio 250, 25, sorry. It's a thing where if you donate money, they pick certain groups who apply to be on their list. And we're on their list, and so when you send them money, then they double it for us. So we get double that back. So you go in on the website and do all that. So I have some of these. I'm going to pass them around, so please take one. I know, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, it's easy to do, and it comes back to us, like I said, double fold. So it's a great thing. So I wanted to. Some of the things that we're needing to do in the near future, which this money will help us do, is we've installed some new lighting on this floor, but our second floor desperately needs lighting in the hallways. It's so dark. So that's one of the things we're hoping to do if we get some money. And the most expensive thing is that needs to be done is the ceiling of the Broad Street facing, which is over here, facing exterior, the quote to point the bricks is $28,000. So yeah, we're always needing money, and we're all volunteer, and we don't get money from anyone except you people. So yeah, please donate. Yes, and this PA Ohio gives. It's only for this week. It's a very short period of time, so you have to do it by Friday 10.
They can also real easy access that link on our Facebook page. It's right at the top.
There you
So you go to the link, it'll take you right to the donate page. You don't have to go through all these other links. It'll take you right there.
Okay.
Real easy to do.
So if you're, doubles up, yeah. So if you're not on Facebook, here's the time to get on and go on and click on the link to get you to donate. It's really easy to do. It's just a couple of things.
And they match your gift, the foundation does.
Yeah.
So it doubles your
Doubles everything you give us, the grandchildren always. You just can't beat it. So, okay, anything else? No, I think that's it. Okay, so, any questions on what I've said so far? Because I went through everything. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Vince. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll bring him out. Vinson Skibo has been a 30-year resident of our community with lifelong roots in Mercer County. He is a member of our historical society, the Mercer County Historical Society, 5 different railroad-related historical organizations, and is listed as an expert on railroads with the Western Pennsylvania Historical Consortium. He recently presented research material on railroad air brakes at the New York Central System Historical Society's annual convention in Rochester, New York, and presented an in-depth look at Dr. William Gibson's involvement with the early railroads of Mercer County to the Jamestown Area Historical Society. This spring, he had a 2-part feature article published in the Transit Postmark Collector on the history of the railway mail service through the Oil Creek Valley, and has an upcoming article soon to be released in the New York Central System Historical Society's, quarterly publication about a postcard that was mailed from Pittsburgh. This is really cool. Mailed from Pittsburgh, taken to England, and the return trip went to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean on the ill-fated Titanic. Yeah. It was eventually recovered, which is amazing, and restored, then finally returned to Pittsburgh where it was put on display. But tonight, he promises to give us something a little different, something to help us change our perspective of how we see our everyday life and surroundings so that we can leave something for the future to better understand who we are now. Tomorrow's history. Vince, ready to go. Come on in.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm glad to see a great crowd. I'm glad also to hear that there's cookies here and refreshments tonight. I promised my wife I'd take her out, that would walk around down Broad Street there, and we'd go to the Cinnamon Grill for dinner tonight, but I hear they're closed now. So I was going to use our $5 off coupon. I guess we're here for the cookies. So, you okay with that, honey? We're having cookies for dinner? I lived in Grove City for 30 years, and where's Skip at? Skip's still, she always asks me, you still live in that 4-square house? And yeah, I still do. She says, we still got that beautiful woodwork. Yes, we do. And one of the things that she always says about that is, well, we kept the woodwork, but we always have to keep up the windows. And over the years, I always spent time going out and scraping the windows and so forth and so on. And when I was working so much, I couldn't do that often, but I tried to prepare for it if I had to. And when I finally got around to it, I knew I had to go get some more glazing. And so when I went to get the can, I pulled it out and I realized it was too old. So I had to go buy a new one. And what I realized was the can that I have is metal. They don't make them in metal cans anymore. Okay, and so that's how long this has been sitting around, and it was from Trader Horn. So this is going to go to the Historical Society, and right here, So if anybody has a coat you need to hang up, I brought an extra hanger for you. This is from Burdick's. Okay, so we're going to talk about tomorrow's history, and I'm sure everybody wants to know what is tomorrow's history. Well, tomorrow's history, today is tomorrow's history. That is, we need to seize the moment, because yesterday's already slipped through our fingers. It's already gone. When we look at doing research for whatever topic we are going to write about or we're going to present, we really rely on things that people have done in the past, things that they've saved, like these clothes and these pictures on the wall, photographs that they've taken, like what we see over here, and books that they've written. And if it weren't for what these folks did 25, 50, 100, 150 years ago, we would have nothing to go back on to pull that information from. So that got me to thinking, especially after I found this can from Trader Horn and a few other things, what are we doing today to save for future generations to reference upon for what we have right now, what's going on in 2025, or at least in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And what can we do about that? Well, that's what the presentation's really about. What can we do right now to make sure that we prepare the future to understand what we are about right now? So before we get started, everybody take out their phones. You got your phones with you? Don't be afraid. This is if you have a flip phone, this is a non-judgmental group here. Okay. A lot of these now are actually collector's items. So there's some. They're very good, Mike. Yeah. I'm sure there's an antique dealer somewhere that would really love to.
Got a bell crank on the side.
All central. Okay. Everybody got their phones out? Okay. So now what I'd like you to do is maybe take my picture or take a picture of someone else in here. It's got a camera in it except for Mike's. Right, Mike? It's got a camera? Okay. My brother's going to take my picture. Okay. So I'm going to get my phone out and I'm going to take your picture.
That's the problem.
Oh, wait a minute. I can't do that. Okay. This was, I thought this was my parents' phone, but it turns out this was my uncle's phone. This was my Andy's phone. Okay. And so as I started to look at this, I remember back when I was growing up, I grew up over in Wheatland. which doesn't exist anymore per se, it got swallowed up by Hermitage. We only needed 5 numbers to call anybody else in a 3-4 extension. Well, this was a 342 number, but 346, 347, we didn't have to dial the 34. And that was great when you were a child, because you didn't have to know as many numbers. Just go ahead and dial the number. Okay, that was great. And I started to look at this phone, and I realized it says here, one of the things says, Bell System property not for sale. But then there's another tag that says that it was sold by AT&T in 1985. Well, you think back, that was only 40 years ago. That's almost a blink of an eye. We were still using rotary phones. And now we have our cell phones. So everybody just took their picture, and this was one of my first cameras. Of course, it was a Polaroid. 8 shots, that's all there was. Hey, and I had almost instantaneous photographs. Of course, 60 seconds. You had to pull the picture out, wait 60 seconds, peel it back, hey, and there it was. But I couldn't send it to you, or I couldn't send it to someone else in California or wherever, like you can with your phones now. So that's a wonderful thing that we have these. We can post them to Facebook, we can hold on to them, we can send them immediately to our spouse or to our children or whoever. So we carry these things with us all the time. And this is a wonderful tool that we all have that we can go ahead and document the things around us. We can take pictures of the buildings, a situation that occurs, a mishap, a joyous event, you name it. And we're going to go ahead and look through some of these things in our presentation today to kind of give us an idea of what to look for, and so that we can go ahead and maybe start to document what we see today in order to preserve it for the future. Can we get the lights, please? Hey, thank you very much. First of all, we're going to take a little bit of a look at then and now. Okay, so here's Grove City. Back then, you know, when we think of history, we think back 50, 100, 150 years or so. Life was all sepia tone. It was a simpler time. But what are they going to look back 100 years from now, 50 years from now, and see? All colors? Yeah. But what are they going to know about us unless we take these pictures and we preserve it for them, just like someone did for us? We look back at our town, we see these great awnings, horses and buggies, cobblestone streets. But in the future, is some child going to look at their grandparents and say, did those cars, did you actually drive them? And they didn't drive by themselves? Do you remember those? Wow. But are they going to say that if we don't take a picture of the town and we don't take a picture of the streets? Girls, if you want to slide your chairs over here, you can, okay? That way you can see the screen better. Now, we've all seen this picture. They took pictures of events that occurred in town, but we have events that occurred now, just like this one right here. It occurs all the time. Maybe not as famous as Buster Brown, but we do have our celebrities. When I was here for that event, I noticed a few pictures on the wall, and that picture is a little picture that's right over there on the counter. These two gentlemen standing in front of their storefront. Mr. Russell Boggs Roll, he was the owner and watchmaker, jeweler, and Ralph Weaver, who was a watchmaker. Now, without that photograph, we may not know that they were actual owners of the store here in town. So why don't we have pictures of some of the store owners now? You know, we need to take pictures of the people that are here now, that have our businesses. Are we so caught up in our daily lives that we forget not only what we used to have, but maybe what we have now? So let's take a look at some of this stuff. When I moved here 30 years ago, I thought it was really quaint. The street that I lived on, it had a certain feel to it because of these huge pin oak trees. And when I look back and I started to collect some of the postcards from the area, I began to see these trees within the neighborhoods, and they were everywhere. These little pin oak trees in circa 1910, when I started to think about it, those trees were bigger than saplings, of course, by 1910. So it took them longer than 10 years to get to this size. And 10 years after that, they were about this size. That meant that they were probably started in the 1890s. That meant that the trees that we have today, these trees here, some of them are still around, lived in 3 centuries when you start to think about it. And of course, that's what we have. I sort of call Woodland Avenue Stumpland Avenue. If you see these 3 trees in a row right here, that's these 3 stumps right here. Okay. Back in 2000, this is out of one of the rooms in our house. We started to see some of these trees come down. Unfortunately, everything comes to an end. These trees tend to rot from the inside out. 10 years later, the trees in front of our house started to come down. And what was difficult with these trees is the power lines. So it became evident to me that they're all going to come down, but we need to pay these trees some kind of respect. These things have lived in 3 centuries. The least we can do is photograph them in their final days. And the skill of these gentlemen that it takes to lift these things up through the utility lines without wreaking havoc to the neighborhood.
Okay. Sorry.
Thanks, Gabe.
Sorry.
Gabe on lights, skateboard on lights. So this tree here was the smaller of the 2. It was 16 feet in girth when I measured it. Now when he brought this down, there was this little sliver here that he cut out in order to fell the tree. And of course, if you ask my wife, she'll tell you I don't throw anything away. I kept that.
Oh,
And I have a plan for it. I've had a plan for it for years, of course. I haven't carried through with it just yet, but it's in my garage because I figured it's not quite into the center, but I would really love to count the rings through here because it saw the Wright brothers' first flight. It saw the bombing of Pearl Harbor. It saw the atomic bomb detonation. It saw Kennedy's assassination. It saw the moon landing. So when you think about it. And I would love to mark this piece here. So if anybody has nothing to do and they want this, they're more than, I'll give you the sandpaper and the lacquer if they would like to take that project on. But that is available. So the trees started to come down all over the neighborhood. I always thought that this one would make a great table for somebody. And you can see those trees are still back over here on the 300 block. But eventually they would come down too. You can see right there. So it kind of gives you an idea. We really have to start paying attention to what's around us, because nothing is going to last forever, even something that's 3 centuries old. So when I moved here, this is Chestnut Street Bridge, of course. But when I moved here, this is what Chestnut Street Bridge looked like. And the bridge had a certain character to it. It looked a lot different than what we see there today. Unfortunately, I was too busy working to photograph it coming down. It was built in 1930 by these contractors from Lima, Ohio. You can see the difference that we have here. One thing we do know, though, here in this little plaque, we do have it memorialized, this gentleman here who gave his life for our country. One thing I do want to mention here, though, is that this piece here, did anybody save it? Does anybody know if this bridge plaque was saved? No? That's too bad. But that's not the only bridge that we have in town. Okay? Or we had, yes, that is quite correct. That is quite correct. Okay, and this is the bridge that we had the day before it was gone. looking from both sides and from the other end. And I always wondered, who was the last car that went over that bridge? And that was the very last day before it was closed for good. And it wasn't long before, well, it was gone and it was coming down in pieces. And it is now history. And it's coming apart. And next thing you know, the other side of the span was gone as well. Then they had to bring in the big guns here because they needed to offload pre-stressed, prefabricated strips of concrete that was going to go ahead and span the bridge, or span the creek. And at this point, the crane was finished for its job. And we can see it here parked. All of these are counterweights, in case you're not familiar with these type of machines. And all of this crane structure folds inside itself. And these are the outriggers needed to move these here. And anybody can go over here and look at this and take these pictures. And these are all taken with my cell phone. So you can take these kind of pictures too. So no matter where you're at or what you see, you have the ability to do this too. And you can provide this kind of stuff right here to the Historical Society. One thing I do want to mention is that never enter a construction site. Okay, this was taken from the park, so this is in public access. Right? And always, if you're entering private property, always ask permission before you would enter private property in order to take any kind of photographs. I just happened to be so lucky as the day that this vehicle was leaving town for a period. They didn't need it for a while. It was moving on. And it was quite interesting is all of these wheels and axles turn except for, I believe, these two, right? Two sets right here. That turns and this one turns. They all turn when this guy needs to make a turn down the street. And the boom and all of the counterweights are carried out on a separate vehicle. One of the things that really became evident to me while this was all going on was the traffic for the detours. And I have never seen so many big loads go through town as I have during this construction phase. I saw a boat go through town the other day that looks big for Lake Erie. And I had no idea where it came from or where it was going. And I couldn't even afford to put gas in this thing. It was so big. You know, and so we have our marked detours, but we all know the best detour is on Pine Street.
Yep.
Okay? That makes this intersection in this stretch between here and over here on Center Street the busiest place in town, especially between 2, 3, 4 o'clock every day. This is a busy place, busier than it probably has ever been. When I compared the two pictures here, and it's rare to see banks or see any structure where it's the same type of business in them for so long. I noticed that, you know, this guy is going the wrong way and he's going to get a ticket, or it was a two-way street. So the bridge work continues. This picture is now history. This is also history, but this is today. This is at 11:53 this afternoon. And so we had spans back in here. The crane came back into town in order to lift these spans and put them in. And it was disassembling itself when I got there this afternoon. It was taking itself apart, getting ready to leave town again. Or I think it was going to move in order to put the other spans in.
They're putting the other spans in on Friday if you want to go down and watch them.
I got to work on Friday, so you're going to have to get your camera in. I appreciate it. But thank you, Friday. That's great. Okay. So, men at work. I began to think about this, and I don't think they use that term anymore. I don't think it's politically correct any longer. I believe they use a work zone. Okay. You know, as a borough of Grove City, we are really kind of fortunate to have a lot of our own utility workers. But we have to pay homage to them, in a sense, that if we don't record what they do, how will anyone remember that they were actually doing that kind of work for us? And they do all kind of work. This is them on Valentine's Day replacing a fire hydrant on Opry. After I started to look at this picture, I realized that this was Andy and Mary Ann's house, and they added on to this house. So this house is even different now. Does anybody remember when they used to walk around town with a gang of guys with leaf blowers to clean up? Okay, and I wonder, what are they going to do next to clean up the leaves? So when the trees got too big in town, when these started to get a little bit too big, what did they do this past year? They took them down and they replaced them. How soon are we going to forget that they did that? See, that's one of the things we have is a thing called collective consciousness. That is, we as a group, as a community, will remember an event that occurred. But that can actually start to slip away from us. And it's photographs of what's going on that helps us remember for us. Or, after we're all gone, the first person remembrance of that event. They are gone. It's the photographs that we have hanging on the wall of those events that help other generations, future generations, the younger generations, remember what occurred. Whether it be in the trees or the streets getting repaved, the workers on the streets that we see around Hall Industries. We have a lot of folks around doing work. I just happened to be driving down the road one day and I saw what they were doing here. Now, was this a display? Was this for a photo shoot? I don't know. But this kind of caught my eye. And now we know what these are. These are food service trucks for the airline industry. They're scissored up in order to shuffle the food carts into the aircraft while they're on the tarmac. And whether maybe they just did this for fun, I don't know. But it was kind of neat. Over in the hog yard one day, they had all of these sitting here. Now, you know what those are? Okay, these gray things back here connect onto the ends of these, and these are actually laying on their side. There's wheels on the bottom of here. These are jetways. If you ever go to get on an aircraft these days, you walk down these corridors, and then you enter one of these, and the other side actually goes against, when the diaphragm goes against the aircraft. And there's wheels on the bottom here. And that's what's made over there. You might see them coming in and out of town on trucks. But we need to record this kind of stuff. I'm kind of kicking myself for not photographing some of the earlier trucks that used to shuffle the engine blocks out of GE that had the canopy, or the what do you want to call it? What do you call them, Mike? That went down like over on a gondola, the covered gonds that went down on top of the trucks, the semis.
Yeah. Cover?
Just a cover, because now they use the
Soft side.
soft-sided trucks. And you never know what you're going to see hauling around town. Another big load. And you never know what you're going to see swinging through the air either. So once in a while, my wife's always saying, but watch the road, quit looking up in the air. But you never know what you're going to see when you look up or who might be looking down at you. And sometimes, in this particular situation, they needed a little help from one another. So they had a call for backup. This was actually what they call an upright grand piano.
Oh my goodness.
It was painted all red, and it was getting thrown out. And of course, my wife wouldn't let me bring home something else that bad, okay? Even if it was a piano. And so I just had to stay out there in my pajamas in the cold and take this, because it's one of them things that you just don't see every day. But in the sense, we see these workers every week. Every week. We've seen a lot of businesses come to an end as well. I had a friend that used to say, I sure do miss Trader Horn. I could walk in there and I knew where everything was at. I go in these other stores, I don't know where anything is at. I walk around forever. Anybody remember this building? It says Auto Glass. And there's a little fire going on here. This garbage bin here was actually almost into one of the alleys.
Oh, that's across from McDonald's.
That's across from McDonald's. Very good, Mike. You get a cookie for free. Yeah, it was there for the Rite Aid, and well, of course, Rite Aid is now closed too, in a long time, but different. Which once looked like that was not like that. And all of this was not that long ago. Here's a nice residential area. Over on East Pine. Here's right across the street from it. That was 510 East Pine. And here's 508 East Pine on the 22nd of April. On the 24th of April, the front porch is gone, and the front of the house is just about to disappear. On the 25th, it's gone. The front of the house is gone. Soon to be gone, never more to be seen. Completely gone. Never more.
Vince, I think one of those houses was years ago residence for the president of the college.
Oh, really?
I believe so.
And so now I start to wonder, now, is it to the point where should we take pictures of all of our neighborhoods? I've got to have a picture of my car, because Renee and I were coming back from an event with my brother Bob and his wife Frida, and one of Pennsylvania's deer ran out and did a number on the vehicle there, and well, it's never more. Also, but there are new things, and some things get renewed. You know, when I first started to drive through this area many years ago, before I even moved here, out by the outlet mall, all that was out there was Mons by a little. And I think, gee, I don't have a picture of that either. Okay? And so when things start to grow up in an area, we look back and say, remember when there was nothing here? You know? Or remember when you used to be able to see that building before something else came up in front of it? And so I also had a friend that used to take pictures of the steel mills as they were getting tore down. And now that they're all gone, I thought, gee, well, what can I do? Because I like that idea. And when I was still working, I used to stop at Wendy's on the way to work because I had no other option at times. And so I started to see this. And I thought, okay, why don't I try something like that in reverse? And before you know it, this started to come together. And we had Town Place Suites. Renee and I travel all over. And we were really shocked to find out that whether we were talking to someone in housekeeping at a hotel in Toronto, or talking to someone who owns a bar at the French Quarter in New Orleans, they know the Grove City Outlet Mall. They do. It's amazing. We are world famous for that outlet mall, I'll tell you. a little closer to home, sometimes buildings are to renew an old one, like this one here. And I missed getting a picture of the building it replaced because it's McDonald's. Now, the McDonald's, and the McDonald's that was there before, you know, no kiosks, none of that other kind of stuff that they have now. There was a concrete date marker from one of the old schools that was laying out in front of it. I see some people shaking their heads.
Yeah.
What happened to it?
Gave it to the school. I remember we were involved in that when, you know, they asked us if we wanted, when they were remodeling, they asked us if we wanted some of the artwork that was in the building and that keystone, that, and I believe we called the high school and they took it out, I think, for their.
They did take it.
I believe so.
So it did get saved when
Yeah.
they remodeled it. That's a wonderful
We
thing.
didn't have any place out around here. We have no grass area and ground to do anything here.
But it was saved.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that. Wonderful, wonderful news. Now, we really do have to consider those that are the first to respond to all our needs when we have an emergency. And in a way, we do that, and we pay homage to those in the past by the little display that is in the firehouse right now. And it's all lit up beautifully at night. Over there, there's displays on the wall, and of course, this gorgeous truck. But what about the truck we have now? Okay, this beautiful piece of machinery that is huge. When its time comes, and 50 years from now, is it going to be too big, too expensive, perhaps can find another use and we need to sell it? Is it going to have a glass door that we're going to be able to look in to see it? Probably not. So we have to make sure that there is some kind of record of it so that we can remember it. But what we really need to do is remember those that actually respond to those emergencies and make sure that we have the ability to honor them by photographing not only the equipment that they use, but perhaps in events that they respond to, whether it be commercial or residential, a way to document them for future generations to know who we are and the people that responded to our needs. Because eventually there are always a need for those type of services. And there is always going to be catastrophe looming on the horizon that we are, you know, one of the things that I began to think about when I think about this collective consciousness always strikes me as us as a nation. We always can, when I talk to people, they always know where they were when 9/11 struck. But as a community in Grove City, I bet all of us know where we were when Wendell August Forge caught fire.
Yeah.
Don't. I know Renee and I do. We were coming back from the outlet mall. We saw smoke on the horizon. And we thought, gee, that kind of looks like it could be our neighborhood. When is that? And the closer we got, the worse it looked. And it was really bad. We couldn't get up there more than that day. How many of us went up this walkway to go inside to see what was there, what was new, just to go visit? And it was gone. It was gone forever. All of the artisans' work was gone. The places where our friends and neighbors worked was gone. And their jobs were gone for a while too. So we never know what can happen, what can strike to take these things away from us. So we need to record these types of things, and we carry our phones with us all the time. We can't be complacent and just let things slip by us. If we see something, let's document it. So we never should pass up a good opportunity. Now, an opportunity that I have is going to be different than the opportunity that you have, or the opportunity that the next person has. And how do we know that what that opportunity is going to be when we don't? And when it comes our way, sometimes there's a little voice in our head that says, yeah, maybe you should just do this, or you should just go ahead and look. And that's kind of what happened to me on this day. It was right before I gave my first presentation here to the Grove City Historical Society. And I was really, really busy. And I really didn't have the time to go do something else. And an opportunity came my way when this gentleman said, hey, you want to come see my dad's shop? And I said, yeah. And that little voice said, you better do this, you better do this, you better do this. I said, okay. He said, well, come on in. And so he took me in, and I got a personal tour. And I had my cell phone with me, and I was just blown away. The artisan in me, the photographer in me, the workshop guy in me was just in awe. The historian in me, it was like I went back in time into this frozen factory of unbelievable sights. And he showed me all of the things that went on there. He gave me detailed explanation of all of the sights and sounds. He showed me exactly how the forge worked, and how it was fired, and told me how Wendell August couldn't figure this out, and the hours that they took to do something that his dad figured out they could do in minutes. And he showed me the technique. The tools and the machines were so simple and so basic, unlike the things that we see today where they're robotic. But these were so simple and beautiful. And the pieces that were coming out were just simply gorgeous. So when you have an opportunity to, somebody says, hey, come see my pencil collection. Or step on out into my garage, I want to show you my oil cans. Don't pass up that chance, because you never know what you're going to see. Because I didn't know what I was walking into when he said, come on and see my dad's shop. I really didn't know. Now, we all love the holidays in town. They say the two biggest holidays in the United States are Christmas and Halloween. And what better way to celebrate Christmas is with a leg lamp? Okay? And how does that speak of us here in town? You know, it talks about humor. It talks about our dedication to nostalgia and a movie that plays 24 hours a day in a cycle at Christmas. And I could walk down the street and look up in a window, and this is what I see in Grove City. Or I can go to the park, and of course there's humor there again. They caught the Grinch finally. Okay? I'm kind of kicking myself for not going to the park this year and taking pictures. But maybe we should start taking pictures of each and every display each and every year, and keeping that as a document of who we are and the work that our local people do to provide us with entertainment. Now, you always know it's Halloween when the Christian school kids start walking around in their costumes. It's always a bit of a treat when you start seeing them come around, because he's like, oh yeah, look at that, oh hey, he looks great, look at that. Yeah. But not everybody's always happy about going for a walk. I can just hear that dog going, just keep your head down, just keep your head down. I don't know why we're going this way. You know, some of these kids are really, really talented, and they really have the skills to do some really cool things. Just remember, whenever you're taking pictures of kids at Halloween, always ask them permission before you take their pictures. You know, not only are the kids talented in town, the dads are talented too. And of course, some of the businesses get involved. These are some local salesmen. It's Jake, Mayhem, and Doug. You know them. They sell insurance. It's Jake from State Farm, Mayhem from Allstate, and Doug from Liberty Mutual. I don't know what happened to Doug's emu, but he was running around the neighborhood too. And a couple of these guys decided to keep their costumes on and start a lawn service. And I got to hand it to these folks too, because if you look, all right, the lawn is cut over here, and in front of the lawnmower, it's not. All right, I mean that's going the extra mile. Okay, all right, but you know. So when you see this, you gotta take a picture of it, because come on, you know, this is who we are in town. And we all go to the movies. We all love to be entertained, and we are just blessed for having the Guthrie around. And for so many years, you know, the Guthrie ran first run movies for years, and we've all been there. We've all enjoyed what we went there to see, you know, and we all have stories. Bob, I remember you said, didn't you used to say that you would drive from Wheatland to come here when you were a kid? Didn't you used to tell me stories like that?
Dad was taking us.
Dad would bring you. Okay, and that was a long time ago. Long time ago. Okay. But there came a point in time where everything went digital, and they had to buy a digital projector. And in doing that, there was also some other renovations made, because remember them old seats? Okay. Well, when they tore them old seats out, they were still running movies. And that digital projector, at one time, they said that that was the best projector in Western Pennsylvania at that time that was around. But you had to sit up in the balcony. You could still come and watch movies while they were doing the renovations, but you had to sit up in the balcony. But that wasn't the only time there was a renovation. That continued on. And this was grand reopening night in 2022. When they redid everything again, we can see that they had the separation here, and the balcony was redone once more. And they started to have the ability to have comedy acts, live entertainment, and still run movies if they so desired. Of course, we still have the Guthrie, what we see today. And what it was not that long ago, and of course, this picture here. I started to look at this picture, and this actually is right down here in the booth. So they brought the booth out front. There's some air conditioners on top. If you go in there now, you can see this picture. And so I wanted to see, well, what's the year on this picture? And so I went online and started to look for collateral and without a paddle. And it's up the creek without a paddle and collateral damage. And it turns out it's 2004. So when somebody put this picture in there, they actually sepia toned the picture. Okay, I was thinking, oh, this is from the 20s or this is from the 30s, but it's really not. So good food, good drinking, good friends. Okay, we've had a lot of good restaurants, and we had some come and go over the years. The pandemic really took away some restaurants that we had, and who'd have thought that one of the best restaurants that we would have would be a sushi restaurant? And I know a lot of people that really do like this. Some people are afraid of it, but I know we like it. But I wanted to make sure that it's kind of recorded too, because it gives us something different in town. And then I was thinking about this building here. Right now it's called Bookends, right around the corner here. Okay. There was a restaurant in here right when the pandemic hit. Nonnies.
Yeah.
What was the restaurant in there before Nonnies? Carini's. Remember Carini's? Okay, they had the garlic knots. Oh, yeah. Everybody loved them, but everybody hated to be near you when right? Okay. All right. And then there was the Cinema Grill. We lost the Cinema Grill during when the pandemic hit too. That was a great place in there, so that you can, if you wanted to go have something to eat in the afternoon, or just go before a movie, after a movie. And they actually had they started to serve ice cream back in here. They were going to start having live entertainment, and they had another room on this side here for meetings and so forth. And there was talk of even putting a speakeasy down in the basement at that time. And of course, there's a $5 off coupon that I pulled out of my car when I was cleaning it out after that deer hit, and I had to get rid of it. Which brings me to the point, when we lose a restaurant, does anybody ever have a menu of them? Maybe this coupon is the only thing that we have left, besides the sign that's out there, of the grill. And by the way, you can have this for the Historical Society, all right, when we're done. How about Jordan's? Remember Jordan's? Okay. So now Jordan's, we lost Jordan's during the pandemic as well. And when I went, and I took this on Saturday, and when I went over there to look at the sign, and the sign is still in really nice shape, I started to talk to a gentleman there who was taking care of the building, and he pointed out that they put all new windows in the building there. Okay, all the way around. He said the one window on the side was the largest window that that company makes. And one of the things he said was, you just missed us taking this sign off. There's going to be a new business going in there. And it's a good thing you come to take a picture, because this sign's going to disappear too. Spoiler alert, don't tell anybody I told you, there's going to be a new restaurant. I know what time. Just in case it doesn't happen, okay? But there's going to be a new restaurant in town. And this building's been around for a little while. There's a comparison shop. We have coffee shops in town, okay? Here's, of course, the Micro Roaster Coffee, Collage Coffee. Right? And again, remember, if you take a picture of some of the folks that work, make sure you ask permission before you do that. So when I went in there, I realized if we have restaurants, we have shops, and you can get a picture of some of the people who work in there, the owners, if they're your friends, you have a familiarity with them. Document those people too, because they make the difference that keeps these places running. Collage even has a little couches in the windows in the storefronts that you can actually go and sit and enjoy the day. If you want something a little stronger than coffee, we had Kohler's Brewery move into town. Anybody remember what this building was before it was Kohler's? It was a transmission place. Right? And I don't remember what the name of that was, and I don't have a picture of it, but it was a transmission place. Okay. Inside Kohler's, there was all kind of memorabilia. Now, Kohler's actually was one of the oldest breweries in the country, and it was originally out of Erie, PA. And the gentleman who started it, or restarted it, his name was Kohler, but it was spelled different when he got the rights to Kohler's. He had the brewery set up in the back, and he produced the beer there for sale in different distributors, and also for another facility that he had in Elwood City. Eventually, he outgrew the place. Of course, remember, a lot of people went there because they had the food trucks coming in on a regular basis. Okay, but now it's the Smiling Moose, and Kohler's. It's no longer there. There was another place in town, and this was right downtown, called Voodoo. They were out of Meadville. There's a very good bartender there, this nice young man, showing off some of the wares that they had there. There was a lot of eclectic paintings, and the ceiling actually was made out of storm door, or old doors. But it too is no longer with us. If you want something a little colder than a beer, of course, there's ice cream. There's Parker's Parlor. I'll say that fast 3 times. And of course, the infamous Katie's Corners. But we have other places too that I'm not showing you here. Of course, we have other ice cream places. We have Main Street Diner. They have their Greek night. Okay, maybe we need to get a picture of the Greek night. And Broad Street Grill. A lot of people like to go to Broad Street Grill. What was Broad Street Grill's name before it was Broad Street Grill?
Blue Ribbon.
Blue Ribbon. The Blue Ribbon. Why was it called the Blue Ribbon? Have any idea? Okay. Pardon me? Named after the beer? Well, close. Very close. When they bought the liquor license, There was only so many liquor licenses available. And the one that became available was from the Blue Ribbon Bar in Farrell. And that bar had been right across from Sharon Steel, and it had been there, well, how long? When you were a kid? Long time.
Good steaks.
They had good steaks. Okay. And so that had to have been, no, I don't know, 70 years?
Oh,
Easy that it was over there. And so sometimes there's a real history or a legacy to some of the places that we have. So it's good to kind of know these things. You know, somebody told me just recently that if you go to a town called Northeast PA, next to all of their buildings, they have a little sign, and it says all of these businesses that were in that particular building. Nice idea. So let's take a look around town, just around our little community, our old town. Again, I guess this is different than the new town, which is the outlet mall. One of the newer businesses in town, of course, is Express Care. And of course, they've won a lot of awards, and if anybody goes there, you know the service is quite impeccable. But they have this building too. What was this building before? What was it? Fires. Right. And of course, another red, white, and blue is the sale that goes on at Saxony House every July. Unless we document that, oops. Unless we document that, we have to, no. Myself here. Okay. Some of our businesses light up the town at night, like a carnival. And in other businesses, they don't have quite a sign that lights up our town, but the inside can light up your home. Jeff said that he's been in business in town 25 years already. And when you think about that, that's a wonderful thing that we've been able to support Jeff doing this for 25 years. And when you think about it again, will he still be there in 25 years? Will he be there in 35 years or 40 years? So I'm glad that I got a picture of him with his wares when I did. Because you never know when things will change. You never know. Chris Iton lights up the town as well on the other side of the tracks. But is it really that store that we're that impressed with? Or is it the Yinzer pop-up? Isn't that the thing that really says who we are here in town and who we fly our colors with, right? Okay. I mean, we can get officially licensed Steeler hats here, okay, in our sunglasses. We have businesses that are tucked away in our residential areas that are well kept. And of course, we have Art Deco looking buildings as well. We have banks that still look like banks. A couple of them, actually. But will they always look like that? I can think of 3 locations already. Matter of fact, Renee and I plan on going to one tomorrow that is that were banks in communities that are now restaurants, where they've taken their vaults and you can actually eat inside the vault if you want. But we're still fortunate that our banks are still banks. We have these wonderful sculptures around town. But do we take the time to actually look at what's written about them? And do we have pictures of all of them? That's the thing. If somebody hits the gas instead of the brake and runs over one of these things, are we going to remember what it really looked like when it was there? But maybe we need to look at that. We have plenty of places of worship in town. Should we start documenting those as well? And just a drive down the street, it's something that we pass every day. I snagged this picture, looks like 10 years ago, just because the trees were looking great and the sun was hitting the building. But when I think back and I look at it now and I go by, I realize I can't duplicate this picture anymore. Because these trees are now gone. They cut these down. So you can't have that again. So even though the building may still be there, just the way it looks may never be there again. I mean, we all go to the post office on a regular basis, but sometimes just looking up may give you a little different perspective of what that building really looks like. And that might be something worth saving. And of course, there's always men working, and people buy and sell houses and move, and things change all the time. This guy looks familiar. Oh, he's our light man. Yeah, okay, all right. And there's things that have been sitting around forever, but are they always going to be there? Anybody know where this is at? No? You cross the tracks on Madison. This is sitting behind the fence. This is a self-propelled Lorraine crane. And this was probably built in the late 40s, maybe early 1950s. And it's been sitting there for as long as I can remember, as long as I've been here. Of course, sometimes you see things you just got to question. And you never really. This guy's going fishing. He plans on being serious. So, you know, when we look back, we can look back at all of these pictures and say, hey, that's wonderful. We now know what it looked like way back when. And we can feel nostalgic about it. But in those same locations today, unless we take pictures of the same things now, or new things now, when these young girls grow up, are they going to have that same image to remember? Or are future generations going to know what it was like in 2025 or 2030, or once 2075 comes around? And some things will never be here again, or never be the same, because things will change. Catastrophes will happen, buildings will come down, and we want them to remember who we are, where we worked, what we ate, and of course, what colors we flow. Because the trees, no matter how old they are or how big they get, eventually they will come down. Now, remember, you had your phones with you. They're not rotary. Mike still has a crank on his phones. Okay, you got a camera. Take a picture once in a while if you see something. It may be just an everyday common thing. It may be your server. It may be the owner of a store that you like. He's your friend, or she's been serving you coffee for years, or what have you. Just ask them. They might say, sure. They're proud of what they do. I talked with Becky Sofer about this a while ago, and she said that we've been looking through our files, and we found pictures of this store and that store, but when we looked to find a picture of the JCPenney's front, we didn't have one. We couldn't find it. Couldn't find it. There wasn't one in the files. So, do we want that to happen in the future? Do we want these things to disappear? Look, we didn't know what the necktie shop was. I still don't know where exactly it was. Yardley's is gone. Their Yard's antique shop is gone too. Things are going to change. So she said that if anybody takes any pictures and they feel that they want that saved, or it's something that they really want to pass on, that she's more than willing to accept them. And maybe all you have to do is just put it in your phone and send it off to her. Send it off to the Grove City Historical Society. I'm going to leave you with one more picture. Anybody know what painting the town means? Remember painting? They were painting the town. That means they were having a great time. They were just out there letting it go. Right? Well, I had my phone with me, my camera with me one day. Of course, I always have my camera with me. And I saw this lady, and she was going at it. She was literally painting the town.
Wow. Wow.
Can't get that picture again.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Anybody have any questions? Anything they want to talk about? Stuff you saw in the pictures that you remember?
Got one right here, Michael.
Okay.
You didn't mention this, Vince, and the research that we have done has often depended on newspapers.
Yes.
Newspapers had staff photographers, and they would go around taking a lot of the kind of things you are. I wondered, they probably don't do that anymore. And if they do, it's probably not something that's available to organizations like this. So, there's another change in our culture that,
No, Mike's very, very, very right about that. You know, when the larger conglomerates started to buy up the small town papers, we started to lose that particular sense of community that was everywhere, that where they would take those pictures of these buildings. You had that person who was the photographer who lived in town, who knew that, this was going on, or this coffee shop was closing, and we're gonna go take a picture of it before it closes, or this building was gonna get demolished, and we're gonna go get a picture of it, because we're gonna put it in the paper. And they kept those files. And a lot of times when these newspapers were swallowed up, those records were destroyed. I have a friend whose brother worked for the Sharon Herald, and there was a point in time where his brother was instructed to take all their records, throw them in the dumpster. And he said the editor opened up the window and said, "You're not throwing it." He was looking through this stuff and saying, "Oh my gosh, we should keep this. Oh my, we should keep that." And he was hollering and says, "You're not throwing that stuff away fast enough. You better speed it up." And so that's why the Mercer County Historical Society a few years ago went on a search to get newspapers from the county. Whoever had old newspapers, they started to collect them, rehydrate them, flatten them out, and scan them, dry them and scan them, because those records were gone. Those records were gone. Michael's very correct. So now we are those photographers to take pictures of what's going on in the community. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So you mentioned sending it to the Grove City Historical Society is a good way to preserve it, but for maybe like family records, like how do you personally ensure those are passed on? Like, do you, even if you take a photo with your phone now, do you print it out a lot of the times? Because obviously, like, passwords get lost, phones and computers can break. So what's your method for that?
So what you have to be careful with printing today, it's printed on ink, and that ink will fade within 10, 15, 20 years, it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Where all photographs are done on emulsion, and they will last a long time. What I do with my phone is I download them to my computer, but I keep nothing on my computer. I keep everything on a separate hard drive. I copy that hard drive to another hard drive to back it up, and then I keep that hard drive in a fireproof safe. So that if there's a tragedy in our home, that there is a backup of that, so that I can provide that, for the future. I don't want to waste $250,000 or $500,000 photographs. That I would be heartbroken. Renee would just have to put me away. She'd probably put me away anyhow. Now as far as where to store it, it's a file management. It's a file management issue.
Yeah.
And there are ways to deal with your file management. We can talk about that in detail if you like.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, sir.
I have a question about the Flatiron Building. Does anybody know what businesses are in there? I have no recollection of any businesses.
There was a doctor, the closest to
The
the,
doctor's office.
there was a dentist office,
Okay.
4 apartments upstairs.
Okay.
There are boats. Somebody sold boats in there.
Is that right?
She said dentist office and a dry cleaners and her apartments upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Dimitri, yeah.
I don't ever remember anything.
My question would be, where did people park?
People walk.
They walked.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
Anything else? Michael, again?
I have two things. I was reminded when you talked about the Flatiron and no parking. When I was first at Cooper Bessemer in 1979 and moving here in '83, we had an employee who commuted to Grove City by rail. Now, you said you weren't going to talk about the railroads tonight.
Yeah, she said that.
I have to remember Ethel Shaker. She commuted from Pardo to downtown Grove City.
In the 70s.
To work, well, not in the 70s, it would have been the 50s.
Oh, earlier, yes.
But, you know, here was how you did it. What was that, 70-some years ago? And secondly, you wondered about the last car to pass over the East Main Bridge. A few years ago, I discovered that Hill Street was a through street. And I wondered, you know, when did it become a dead end street? And I started asking everybody I thought was old enough to know. I have yet to find anybody that remembered when you could drive on Hill Street from State Street to Cranberry Road. But, you know, these are things we discover were in our past, but how do we find out more about them?
Right. You know, like I mentioned about who was the last person to drive over the bridge. I'd like to know who's going to be the first to drive over the new bridge. And I want to be on the other side of the bridge taking their pictures when they do it. Yeah, or who
There may be a ceremony.
Yeah, maybe a ceremony. I hope there is. Anything else?
Okay, thanks. That was great. And you know, this is exactly what our whole building and society is about, is collecting the history to pass on to the next generation. And this whole building is filled with unbelievable history. Pictures, you know, we've got a real estate room upstairs that shows the old pictures. We've got the business room that has files with, my mom worked at King's Shoe Store, and my sister and I were going through it one day, and we pull out the file, it was King's Shoe Store, and there was a newspaper article with my mom's picture in it. I mean, it was stunning, and it's all over this building. There's just cool stuff that was from our past, and we're trying to preserve it, which is why we need you to donate. But I mean, because I walk a lot in town in the mornings, and I used to walk past that Flatiron building all the time, and I always thought that was the coolest building because it was so funny shaped, but you know, there was crap inside of it, and I thought somebody's going to buy this and they're going to fix it up, and then the next thing I knew it was torn down. Yeah. And then when you walk on Pine Street, they're tearing down those defense houses. It just rose my blood pressure unbelievably because they're part of our district, and it infuriated me that they're coming down, but you know, I can't do anything about it. So yeah, but yeah, this was great. This was great. Yeah. So anything? Okay. So. Donate so we can keep the lights on here for everybody. Yeah, there's cookies and stuff. There's membership forms out there if you're not a member and you want to join, or there's a donation thing. So yeah, come to the next one in a couple weeks. Yeah. Okay, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Vince.